Now, PMP certification is an industry-wide recognized certificate across the globe. Now, project management professional credential is most important industry recognized certificate for project managers, and its credential demonstrates that the professional has the experience, education, and competency to lead and direct project, which means we have to understand this here, because what it says is this is not a course to learn project management. The certification proves that you are already an experienced project manager who has the capability. So it is certifying or endorsing your capability that you are a good project manager as per the global standard. And that's one of the reasons why we will see that there is a need for experience on project management to apply for this certificate course. Now there are two streams. One is if you have a high school diploma, that is you don't have a bachelor's degree, and the other is when you have a bachelor's degree. I would assume that we all have bachelor's degree. So bachelor's degree or global equivalent is what you need to have. If you have that, then over the last 3 years, that is 36 months, you need to have 4,500 hours of project management experience to apply for PMP exam. Along with that, you will also need to have 35 contact hours, which is you will get by this by attending this particular PMP course from Edureka. If you are not a bachelor's degree and you are having some diploma, in that case you need to have over the last 5 years 7,500 hours of project management. One of the reasons for having this is because a lot of the project managers comes from non-IT backgrounds like construction and all, who have been there in the construction industry for a very long time, and they may be having diplomas and all. That's how this started. That's why it's still there. Now the the duration must not overlap, which means that a lot of times we work on multiple projects. Let's say, for example, between 1st January to 28th of February, if there is a project where we are working on two different projects, we cannot say that for full 2 months we have been working on both the projects. We have to say how many hours we have worked on project A and how many hours we have worked on project B. So there cannot be overlap. It has to be separate. I have got a question. I'll just take it once I complete this slide. Experience in the project during the last 8 years. What it necessarily means is that you must have project management related experience. It is not related to the designation you have. When you will go through the course, you'll understand what all we are talking about. So basically, we are talking about starting from activities which is to be done at the initiation or at the time of planning, execution, monitoring and control, closure. In any of the process areas, if we have worked as on any of the project management related activities, that can be taken as a project management activity. 20% of the applications are picked up on a random audit, and in my experience from 2005, I have only seen one person getting that audit, where they call back to the references that you have given. So when you apply in your form, you need to give the name and the mobile number of the person who you are giving as a reference for your work. Now that person has to verify that yes, what you have written is okay. But that as I said, I have seen only one person in all my trainings that has taken place from 2005. If it happens, you have to make sure that whoever's name you are giving knows what you have written there and can vouch for it. Rupa, your question. I'm not a project manager, though I have masters and real-time experience. Can I apply for PMP certificate? As I said, your designation as a project manager is not what is looked at. If you have been doing work which is related to project management, like if you are managing some people, if you are managing some activities, whether it is at the initial stage where you are creating a project charter or where you are doing some planning like creating the project schedule and all. Now all these activities will be taken as project management activities. So PMP is a computer-based exam conducted in Prometric centers. It's a 4-hour exam which has 200 multiple choice questions. Remember that other than the 4 hours, you will also have a 15-minute initial training, and then there is a survey at the end of it. So there are 200 questions. 25 of them are unmarked because those are the questions that they use for surveys, for testing out new types of questions. But as a candidate, you will never know which are those 25 questions. The marking scheme is basically there is a weighted marking scheme for each question, and internally they have a very efficient and sophisticated system of calculating the marks and the pass percentage. In your result, you will not see the marks or percentages. What you will see is whether you are proficient or not in each of the knowledge areas. There is no negative marking. Now, exam is developed by people like us who are PMPs. Once you become PMPs, you can also contribute in terms of this through the volunteering sessions, and various people like that, once they are selected, they actually help in creating more questions and these certifications. Now, after clearing the exam, you will receive a PMP certificate by mail within 2 months. Examination scores are confidential. Now let's take, being a demo class, let's take one area of these studies and see how we go ahead. So the first chapter is about the basic concepts, and obviously it is project management, so we are talking about what is a project. The PMI definition is a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So the first thing is a project has to be a temporary endeavor. That means it has to have a definite start date and an end date. So a software project, we have a definite endeavor. We have a start date when we start doing the project. We have an end date by which we need to complete and implement the project. And it creates a unique product, that is your software that you will be implementing. It can be a service, like if you are doing a ERP implementation. The service is configuring the tool and training and handing it over to the customer. Now, what is a result? We have seen product, we have seen service. So what is a result? In some cases, we are called as mainly on a consulting engagement, where we have to only give a feasibility study report. Now that report becomes a result. That is not a product, that is not a service, it is a result. If in our day-to-day lives, we also see our children doing projects at school, which has a definite start, definite end. We plan our vacation and we go for our vacation. The vacation itself is a project, and we need to understand progressive elaboration. That is, at the beginning of the project, we know or we have an overall idea about what we want, the scope of the project. But gradually, as we start getting into the project, we know more and more about it, and accordingly we have to change our design, our development, based on the overall scope that we have already defined. We are not talking about the commercial aspects, because for that we'll need to look at the change management and other areas, which we will see when we are into the details of the different knowledge areas. So we know what is project. What is project management? Now, project management is applying the combination of knowledge which you will get in the course, the skills, that is your experience that you have gathered, the tools and techniques which you use and what you will learn more during the course, to the project activities to meet the project requirements. So this is the application of the skills, knowledge, and tools and techniques for meeting the project requirement. Now, project management requires or has a lot of generic management skills, a lot of general management skills like negotiation, conflict management, people management. All these are part of general management skills which is required on a day-to-day life of a project manager. Now, one thing I would like to just add at this point of time, based on my experience of my students, is that one of the problems that we face during the exams is we start thinking in terms of what we do in our offices, in our organization. When you come to this course, when you are sitting for the exam, do not think of what you do in your office, how you do it, because that might lead you to a wrong answer. You have to think only from the perspective as specified in the PMBOK, as specified or as I will specify during the class. It is very, very important for you to understand this and be conscious about it. Most of the time, if you start thinking and comparing with what you do in the office, is where you will get your answers wrong. Now, a project manager manages a project means what? He has to balance various constraints or competing demands to ensure that the success of the project is achieved. The only objective of the project manager is successfully completing the project. And when we say successfully completing, what does it mean? It means that balancing the competing factors like scope, time, cost, quality. There are two other factors also which has been added, which is risk and resource. All these are constraints, all these are competing demands. All these requires the project manager's attention to manage that in a proper manner. There will be a scope which is defined. When we start doing the things, we might find that there is more things coming up. We need to change through a proper change management procedure. There is a schedule. If there is an increase in the scope, it will impact either or in both cases, I mean in both, like time and cost both. Now we have to balance those through proper change management practices, or see if that scope is actually required or not. We have to ensure that the product that is delivered, the service that is delivered is as per the expectation. When we see quality, quality does not mean something different. Quality means that you give what you have agreed upon. Resources. We don't always find all the resources as we want. We need many experienced resources, but we get some experienced resource in a team, we get some freshers, but we have to manage with that, give them the necessary training that is required to make them productive. It is project manager's responsibility to take care of those things. So it is project manager's duty to balance and achieve the three often competing goals. Not only three, it's six basically: scope, time, cost, quality, risk, and resource. Now, a project manager manages actually two things. The project manager has to deliver the project, and the project manager also has to deliver the product. We need to understand the differentiation between the two. Now, what is the product? In our example of the software implementation, the software is the product, which has to be as per the functional requirement specified by the customer. That is your product. Whereas the project is how you will execute the project to get that product out. That is managing your team, managing your resources, managing within the triple constraints or the competing demands. That is your project. Now, in case of product there is a product life cycle, and that product life cycle goes beyond the project life. The product life cycle starts when the project is conceived and gets into life. So you start executing or initiating the project, your product life cycle starts, your project life cycle starts. When you deliver and hand over the product to your customer, the project life cycle ends. But now the product still is live. The product is handed over to operations to run it. And they will run it maybe for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, till the time the customer does not want to use that product anymore and wants a new product. Till the time this product is sunset, this is the product life cycle. And we calculate a product life cycle cost to understand what is the overall expense and what benefit we get. Today we are talking a lot about benefit realization. Now when we are developing the project, the benefit doesn't come. It is during the operation, when the output of the project, the product of the project starts being used, is when we get the benefits. So in our business case, we compare these things. Okay. Can operations come under project management, or is it as process management? Okay. Operations, by definition, we said project has to have a definite start and a definite end date. Operations doesn't have a definite start and a definite end state. Operations is a continuing activity and a repetitive activity. So it is not a project part of the project management. It is operations management. And that's why in this particular slide you will see project development is the overall project management part of it. Operations is a separate activity. Now where do we do the project? We do the project in organizations. If we are doing the project on the organization, we need to consider the organization itself to do the work. We need to understand the values, the norms, the beliefs, the expectations of the organization, the policies and procedures. Say for example, you have got a new project. Now that new project has to be executed in Iran. This company that you are working is in India, and let's say currently your organization does not allow people to work in this particular country. Can you take that project? No, you cannot. You have to go by your organization's policies and procedures. If the organization has a policy that the women employees of the organization cannot work after 7 p.m., you cannot plan to take those resources in a project which requires you to work on a B shift or a C shift, that is the night shift, because that will be beyond 7 o'clock. You cannot go deviate from those policies and procedures. Your company has certain policies of travel. When you are calculating the costs, calculating the travel processes, you need to consider those to ensure that there is no hiccup for the project to be executed because of these policies. So you need to understand those policies and procedures. On top of that, today we work with a lot of virtual team where the people are not from only one single location. We have people from various countries who comes from various beliefs, who comes from different cultural background. We need to understand those cultures. In India, you will see that we have a lot of habit of nodding our heads all across. It confuses people in the West, where they understand the front nodding as a yes and horizontal nod as a no. Now we need to be careful about those. We need to understand the authority relationship. We have to get approvals. We need to get resources from various functional heads, department heads. We need to understand what the structure is and accordingly work with them. So work ethics and work hours, organizational structure. Now work ethics, we will see a lot of questions, around 20 questions in PMP, which is about work ethics. There is a separate code of conduct and code of ethics which you need to sign for PMP. There are questions on this which we will discuss when we are going through the course in details. When we are looking at this, based on the organizational structure, PMI has defined it into 6 different types or models of organization. At the two ends, we have two extremes. On one side, we have the functional. A functional is a typical classical organization which we see anywhere, where everything is under different departments. So you have a legal department, you have a HR, you have a finance, you have a manufacturing, you have planning. All these are separate, and each research and development, and each one has a department head. All the resources reports of the department reports to the department head. The appraisals are done by the department head wherever they work. So you as a project manager, when you go to them, you need to get those resources from these departments. But even though they are working on your project, they will still be appraised by the functional head. Now that is functional organization. On the extreme other side, we have something called projectized department, projectized organization. Now in a projectized organization, everything works as a project. So that there is a common pool of resources. There is a specific department called project management department where all the project managers reside. Every work is as a project which is under the authority of a project manager from this project management group, and the various resources comes and joins and forms a project team who will report to the project manager till the time the project is complete. The project team will be released at the end of the project and they will go back to the pool. Here the appraisal is done by the project manager for their part of the work. And in between this, we have a matrix organization, which is more like a mix of the two, where we have a weak matrix to a strong matrix. In case of a weak matrix, what happens is resources are taken from the different departments, functional departments, and one of them is given the responsibility of project coordination only. Reporting still remains with the department heads. The issue with this is that we have to keep going to the functional heads to get the resources, first of all, to get the best resources out. Number two, the appraisal will be done by the functional head, so there might be conflict of interest which needs to be resolved at all the times. There is a balance matrix where we have the resources coming from the various functional department. There is a project manager assigned, but the power of the project manager is not very strong. The project manager only gives inputs to the functional head for the appraisal situations. And then we have a strong matrix where, as far as the project management part is concerned, project management is done by the project manager. These people will have a dotted line to the project manager as well as to and a direct line to the functional manager. Now when we look at these, we have to understand as a project manager what kind of a organization structure this is, and based on this we understand what is the authority of the project manager and accordingly handle the situation. So there are 47 project management processes in the 5th edition of the PMBOK, which is currently running. And these 47 processes are spread across 5 process groups. And the 5 process groups are initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closing. So these you can also say as the 5 phases of a project. You initiate a project where you say that yes, this project is now going to happen. You assign a project manager, you create a project charter, and take it forward from there. Once you do it, the next thing that we need to do is plan. So we decide that, okay, we will go for a Europe vacation. And we decide on it. And we say, okay, we will have this much of fund for this vacation. That is initiation. Planning is where we start talking to the agents, to the travel agents, to the hotels, and plan out where all we will want to go, where we will do what, how many days we stay, and plan out how we go by flight, by train, whatever. All those is at the planning stage. Execution is when we are actually going and doing the work, or where we are on vacation, where we have bought the tickets, where we are now traveling and we are moving around. You will always see that even in such cases, we go to a hotel, we don't like the hotel, maybe we change the hotel, the location is not good, or we plan to go in train, but we find that it is better to go by car to certain destinations. We plan to visit particular places, but instead we heard that it is better to go to some other castle or something. We plan that. Now that is progressive elaboration, where on a regular basis we get to know more about the place, about the work, and we make changes to our plans. Now, when we are doing all this, there needs to be a control, a monitoring and control. So the parent will always, the father will always be doing the monitoring and control to ensure that you don't spend money more than what was planned. And finally, once it is done, we close. We pay back all the agents, we pay all the uh, vendors with whom we have interacted, like hotels, car, whatever it is, and we come back, put our photos in the album, put it on the Facebook and all those. That is closing. PMI always says that once you finish a project, you should also party with the team. That is basically for the motivation of the team, for the hard work they have put in. So in each process, what we will see is there is inputs, there are some tools and techniques to execute that process, and the process will generate some output. In a software project, we have the scope, we have the contract, all those will come as our inputs to our requirements gathering. Once we do the requirements, then gathering by interviews and conference room pilots and all these, we will then generate the output, which is your approved requirement specification document and the acceptance criteria. So that is how all the processes will be. The whole PMBOK is also arranged in similar manner for you to study. There are 10 knowledge areas which is covered in the PMBOK. First is the integration management, which integrates all the knowledge areas together. We have scope management, time management, cost, quality management, human resource management, communications management, risk management, procurement management, and stakeholder management.